Hey everyone, it's Julia or JD99, and today I'm going back to the roots of my channel by making a little video about taking some other fandom and figuring out ways to apply it to D&D. Today's video we're going to be talking about Super Smash Bros. And how to make some of those characters as 5e. But I can't do this by myself, so let me introduce you to my help for today. Actually before we do that, let's get started with... Alright, so hello everyone, I would like to introduce you to my special guest for today.
Hello, my name is Nathan Gooey Chewy Miracle.
Is that your legal middle name?
No, but it is the name I go by most often. My friends, if they yell out Gooey, I respond as though that's my name. So it might
Uh,
as well be my name.
yeah, fair enough. So, yeah. So you want to tell the people what we're doing here today?
Absolutely. I was born in the 80s when Nintendo was the hottest thing around and was totally winning the console wars and was not to be outdone by any other console for any reason. And Mario was the biggest character ever, at least in my mind. And, and when Nintendo came out with Super Smash Brothers in the 90s, I was their target demographic. So I bought that game as quickly as I could on my limited teenager budget and have been playing Super Smash Brothers ever since. I also play Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah.
and I love making characters in Dungeons and Dragons. So I've actually gone through and made every character in Super Smash Brothers as a 5.5 character. But today we're going to be talking about the original 12 using the base 5th edition rules.
Yeah. Well, now it almost makes me want to go back and figure out if there's a way to do this in like the original D&D, like chainmail and stuff.
There probably is. There probably is. And I have to admit, there are some characters that were direct translations from 5.5 back to 5th edition, and some that weren't. And I gave myself an additional challenge that I don't know if you did, because we each have our own builds. I made sure that I did not duplicate any classes in
Okay.
these 12.
I tried that. I think there's like one or two duplicates, but like the subclasses and like the way they express those classes are always very different.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. Obviously, it can be done. Quite frankly, with Super Smash Brothers, you can make every character a monk of some sort
Yeah.
because they all do punches and kicks. But
Yeah.
uh,
Well,
you, I tried to base it not just on Smash Brothers, but also
me
their
too.
other games.
Yeah, I've got some really fun ones that I think you'll enjoy with that idea. And, also in theory, using D&D, you can make everyone a wizard by just retexturing the spells.
That's true too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I often go, okay, yeah, this character doesn't do magic in whatever property they come from, but this thing they do can be represented by the magic.
okay. So let's jump
Batman
in.
is a great one for that. He does a lot of things that can be done with magic.
Yeah. Alright, so let's jump in. Can you see that? First one I
Yes,
have up is Samus. And so, went for the very obvious direction with this, to me, was the Armorer Artificer.
that is exactly what I did as well. So
Yep.
I've only built my characters up to level 4, and we will of course share my character sheets. I have them in Dungeons and Dragons Beyond, so those will be shared. I presume in the link down below.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Uh,
That's a good idea. See.
uh,
This is why I don't. This is why I almost said this is why we pay you, but you're unfortunately not getting paid for this.
you pay me twice as much as every other YouTube video that I'm in.
Okay. I'll tell you what. If this video takes off and the channel somehow becomes monetized, you'll get your cut of this video.
Yes,
That's
excellent.
only fair. All right.
So,
Yeah.
but I did the exact same thing, Armor Artificer, with the infiltration mode,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
because
Okay, so what infusions did you go for? I mostly went for like the armor stuff, magical strength because it's like a giant exoskeleton to let it lift stuff, enhanced weapon because well the suit is a weapon, defense of course, mind sharpener. This is the one that I thought was the most fun was the replicate item lantern of revealing, and for me this is because like she's got like that heads up display that lets her scan stuff in her environment.
so she does, yes. Now, like I said, I only built mine to level 4, so I don't have as many infusions. So I have four infusions listed, but at level four, you only get to make two of them. So the two I've made are enhanced defense, so I can have a little bit higher armor class, and replicate magic item sending stones. That's something I love to do on any futuristic type character because they're basically little walkie talkies. Not
Ah,
really, because you only get 25 words, but they kind
yeah.
of act like I'm contacting my ship.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And all right. So
And I think we probably picked a lot of similar spells. I have actually light and shocking grasp. Um, I did not do the firebolt because I felt like just the armor weapon was good
mhm.
for the ranged attacks.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like lightning lure definitely makes sense for the Smash Brothers version of the character, though.
Yeah, and they get magic. She gets magic missile, of course, because
Right? Which is, I mean, she shoots missiles in the
yeah,
game,
yeah,
in her own game. Yeah, so that makes perfect sense.
yeah. I feel like whoever designed this subclass had a feeling that we were going to be doing this one day because that's a subclass spell.
Yeah, and quite frankly, this subclass is the Iron Man subclass, but Samus's power set is kind of Iron Man as well,
Yeah.
without the flight.
Hmm.
So it works perfectly.
Yeah. All right.
This one was the easiest one to figure out.
Yep. Next up, the big man himself, Mario.
All right, so I have several Mario builds, so I'm going to let
Hmm.
you go first and tell me about yours.
Okay, so for this one, this was another one of those things where I didn't want to just make them all like, simple like variant humans for a feat. So I decided to think, okay, what's the next most logical race for Mario? I'm thinking, okay, he's squat, he has facial hair, and he's strong. That's dwarf.
I also went dwarf. I went hill dwarf instead of mountain dwarf, but I also went dwarf.
Yeah, so gave him a magic initiate. It's mostly just because I needed to give him an excuse for the fireball thing. So, because he shoots the little fires, so he's got the firebolt cantrip, and also jump because he can jump super high.
He is Jumpman, yes.
Yep, yep. So I decided to make him a battle master, and so for his maneuvers, pushing, sweeping, and tripping. Because to me that's the way I see Mario. Like he's like very dexterous, moving around. He can trip people with his hammer. Can like jump up on top of them, lunge at them. Like he's not afraid to get down and dirty. And so of course his
Absolutely
armor
true.
is hammers, or his weapons are hammers.
Right, and that goes back to the original Donkey Kong games
Yep.
where he picks up the hammer. And we also see that in Super Mario RPG. He uses a hammer as one of his primary weapons.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
Um,
I mean I'm partial to the Paper Mario games, but yeah.
yes, yeah, there too. Um,
Oh yeah, and
Although
also
I'm hoping Paper Mario becomes a separate Super Smash Brothers character at some point.
oh yeah, that'd be fun. But yeah, and also there was no plumbing tools, so I went for carpenters because in the original Donkey Kong he's technically a carpenter. And then also masonry was the next closest thing I could think of to plumbing.
So we have some similarities there. I also went with carpenter's tools for that reason and masonry tools for that reason. And I thought about making Mario a barbarian using a similar idea as yours, giving him the hammer. Um, and of course, I thought about making him a four elements monk so that he could shoot fireballs that way. But what I ended up doing was making him a ranger.
Hmm.
So he can use hammers, but instead his primary attacks are the druidic fighting style to give him frostbite and produce flame
Hmm.
for both the ah we have a cat.
Yeah.
All YouTube must stop for cat. So I've got him to where he's got the fireball, he's got the frost flower power as well.
Hmm.
But the subclass I went with is the Drake Warden. That way, he's got Yoshi. Now we'll have a whole separate Yoshi as well,
Yeah.
but eventually once you level up enough, you get to ride your Drake, which means you get to ride Yoshi in this game.
I love that. Okay. And did you also do high strength for him, or?
I focus more on the wisdom because
Okay.
I have the spells as the primary attacks.
Yeah.
And then also commanding Yoshi to go eat people
Yeah, and
is more wisdom based. So I've actually only got him as 12 strength because I went wisdom top, and then I went dexterity and constitution as the next two.
yeah, so for me, I also put him high charisma, and that's because, to me, Mario in these games, he's always very charming. People always want to help him. Mario walks up to someone, and as long as they're a good guy, they're like, oh yeah, Mario, come on in. You can walk right into my house. I don't mind.
Yeah, Mario is one of those characters that really all of his stats except maybe intelligence should be pretty high.
Yeah,
So sometimes you have to make compromises there.
yeah, yeah, you get it.
All right, and who do we have next?
All right. Hmm.
Luigi.
Luigi. Okay, this is the
Louis.
one I was most excited for you to see. So
Okay, yeah. So
I
this
went
is okay.
I went Blood Hunter with this one because here's the thing. I was trying so hard to not just have him be a Mario clone, so I had to think, okay, what is the most unique defining thing about Luigi? Luigi's Mansion. And like, okay,
Hmm.
Ghost Hunter. What class gives you best for Ghost Hunter? Then I started looking through Blood Hunter, and there's literally a Ghost Hunter subclass.
That makes a lot of sense. So I didn't go Blood Hunter because I stuck with Wizards of the Coast official
Fair enough.
publications. But I like where your head's at on this.
Yeah, and like so the Poltergust 3000, I figured that that's just like a retextured flail because, it's got like the tube and the
Yes, yeah,
nozzle.
you could definitely hit somebody over the head with that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, the various rites of fire and the dawn and Aether Walk, and because I actually really like this because in a lot of the Mario games, you get to see like this deeper side of Luigi, where like he's very much battling like some sort of inner turmoil, like in Super Paper Mario, how he spends a long time as Mr. L,
Hmm.
or how in the first or in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, his final smash isn't the Poltergust; it's like this weird negative zone thing.
Well, that's in part because he the I'd have to look at the exact timeline, but the Luigi's Mansions games were not big when he first got into Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah. So yeah, I just find this
So
interesting that like you have all of like these weirder aspects of Luigi that are right there if you dig a little bit. So I feel like this idea of like this haunted man who's like trying to hunt down his demons works really well.
So I did a similar theme, but because I was sticking with the Wizards of the Coast stuff, I went with a cleric.
Mm,
Obviously, they have turn undead, but grave domain clerics in particular are all about the dead stay dead,
hmm.
and don't bring them back. Get rid of the ghosts. So that's the way I went with this. And I
Let's
made
see.
him a hill dwarf because he is Mario's brother. I figured they should be the same species.
That makes
Um,
sense.
but I gave him a lot of things that did radiant damage to kind of mimic the poltergeist. I gave him light because he can shine the flashlight out of the poltergeist 3000. The one thing that I would want to give him at a higher level, if I can find a way to do it, is a way to duplicate himself so we could have Gooigi. But I made my characters level 4, so I didn't get to a way to do that. Um,
Well, now
but
it
yeah,
makes me
he's
wonder what. Okay, okay. Surprise round. How would you do Waluigi? Because we're all gonna hope he's gonna be in the next Smash. How would you do Waluigi?
okay. So the way I would do Waluigi is as a monk.
Okay.
Now that's partly because monk is an easy way to do all of this, but also because he uses a lot of different weapons. I would have him use the tennis racket, the golf club, that sort of thing, because I feel like he would primarily be a Mario sports representative.
Okay. Well, and also he's. I think in a lot of the Mario sports games they show him having like various water powers, and so like there's plenty of room for like an elemental.
Okay. I'd like to find some way to give him magic stone so that he can throw soccer balls at people too.
Oh yeah, yeah, that'd be fun.
Just all the sports references that we can get,
All right.
which is also what I'd want him to do in Smash Brothers. Is
Oh, so we'd also
it,
have vehicle proficiency because karting.
Right. Yes, he can do the go-karts.
All right.
Kinsai would be good with him because then you can take quarter staffs and reflavor them as golf clubs and whatnot.
All right. Next up, the main man himself, Yoshi.
Yoshi! Oh, one last thing on Luigi. I cosplay as Luigi.
Nice.
So he's he's
So,
he's my favorite Mario brother.
so yes, Yoshi. I was torn between Dragonborn and Kobold, and eventually figured that Kobold fits him a lot better. One, because of the size, and also because of the Draconic cry.
Okay. That does make sense. He yes, Yoshi does have the cry.
Yeah. So went with Sun Soul Monk, and this is because in a lot of his games, he can spit fireballs, and also he has
Mhm.
like even better ups than Mario does. So he's
Yes,
a
he
monk.
does.
He's very dexterous. He can jump super high. He can do the flutter thing to maintain air for a few seconds.
So
And
I also went with Monk
okay,
for a lot of the same reasons. Um, I went with the aspect of the Dragon Warrior.
okay, that was also on my list.
That I thought it might be because it does fit a lot for him. And you're talking about draconic species with Kobold or Dragonborn, but I
Hmm.
went a different direction on that because what is the one attack that Yoshi is most known for?
Eggs.
Eating people.
Oh.
So I went with Lizard Folk because they have a bite attack.
Oh yeah. Well, that's also in the same ballpark of reptilian.
It is, yes. So
Yeah.
it's also reptilian. You're kind of mixing lizard with dragon by getting the aspect of the dragon warrior, and because the bite attack is considered an unarmed attack, you get to use your monk weapon die for that attack, and at certain points you get to heal by eating people,
Oh,
which feels very Yoshi.
yeah. So yeah, the one thing I couldn't really get to work out though was the eggs. Were you able to figure out throwing eggs?
I was able to figure out throwing eggs, um, but not on this version of this character. As I look back through it, uh, in the but because it's only fourth level, in the 5.5 version that I have of him, I believe I got this from a background. Actually, I took Magic Initiate to get the magic stones
Hmm.
so that I could throw those as eggs.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
but but because you don't get the origin feats in 5.0, I wasn't able to bring that in that way. I'd have to take that as a separate feat later. And the feat I took instead was athlete, so that I could jump really, really high.
Nice. But yeah, and I tried looking for anything that had like an explicit tail weapon, and a few character races do, but none that would have been worth the trade-off away from Kobold. So instead, just
Mhm.
the way I'm doing this is like, okay, it's just martial arts or whatever. But for this particular character, it's martial arting with the tail.
Yes, and the martial arts feature does say that unarmed strikes are not just punches.
Yeah, yeah,
It can be an attack with a different part of your body. So if you have a character who has a tail,
yeah.
they can absolutely do unarmed strikes with their
Hmm.
tail. Now, don't go trying to argue, my tail is super long, so I get reach, even though it doesn't say.
Yeah, exactly.
Not so much, but you can hit with the tail.
Okay, now I want like a monk who has like really low intelligence because of brain damage because all their martial arts are just
Headbutt.
headbutt.
Yep. Yeah, I just always hit people with my head. That
Wait,
explains
wait, wait.
so
Is that what
much.
happened to Kyrios?
Yes, so anyone who doesn't know, I play Kyrios in our adventure, and Kyrios is not the most intelligent of Minotaurs, although he is incredibly good at sports.
Hmm.
Uh,
Oh yeah,
Best
yeah.
athlete in the world.
Well, think about the World Cup's right now, so maybe he hit a football was coming at his head too many times and he just bumped it off. He got the goal, but at what cost?
Yeah, and Minotaurs use rocks for their
Hmm.
soccer balls. So, but that didn't stop him.
Yeah. Also, I love just this dearth of Minotaur culture that we've come up with. That, like, on one hand, they're like this very poetic, philosophical people, and then there's also just their athleticism, which is just pure brutality.
Yep,
Yep.
absolutely.
Hmm. But speaking of, all right, everyone's favorite, Donkey Kong. I think this might be the one that I was the single most excited for because I know that you had something special for him. So, tell you what, you go first with your Donkey Kong because I know you were excited about that.
All right. So I have a very different Donkey Kong in 5.5
Hmm.
because in 5.5 I have him as a combination Bard Ranger,
Hmm.
and he has fairly low strength, but he gets to hit people with the Dance Bard subclass. So he's very good at unarmed strikes.
Yeah.
But that's not a subclass that's available in 5.0. So I went with a completely different build. And I have him as a druid.
Yeah.
I have him as druid for a couple of reasons. One, he befriends a lot of animals. And with the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything rules, you can, instead of turning into an animal, you can find familiar. So you can have an animal companion that goes around with you, which he does in a lot of the Donkey Kong Country games. Or you can go with the more modern ones. I have not bought a Switch 2, so I haven't played the most recent one, but I know he does transform into like zebra mode and whatnot in the new ones. So you can do actual transformations that way as well.
Okay. I love that.
Um, I do have him as a bugbear, so if you do need to punch somebody, you can do it from far away.
Okay, yeah, so we
Uh,
both went for Bugbear.
Yeah, and I've got the Tavern Brawler feat so that he can um, actually punch people and do damage too, because I didn't get that from any class features.
Hmm. If he
But
hits you, it's gonna hurt.
exactly, I needed him to be able to hurt people by hitting them.
Yeah. Alright, so I went for also a bugbear, but I went Barbarian Path of the Giant because I wanted to go for him being really big and really painful. So
Hmm.
at fourth level, also got him the Gunner feat, so because of the coconut shotgun. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
here's the thing. Just sort of settled on Bugbear because, like, aesthetically it was the closest thing. But then the more I looked into it, the more it really fit because they're
It does.
long-limbed. They've got like that natural, unarmed thing that they can punch people with, and also you can get either like aspect of the druid or something that lets you get the thaumaturgy or druidcraft cantrip. So I figured, okay, thaumaturgy because he's big and loud. Boom! He can make sonic booms.
So one of my druid cantrips is thunderclap, so I can do the ground pound that way.
Okay.
Sadly, I don't have thaumaturgy. That is a great idea
Yeah,
for the booming
and
voice.
but yeah, and also the giant, partially because of the size, but also just because I feel like it's very fitting, like elemental cleaver with thunder damage and giant's havoc.
Yeah, and this also explains how in the original Donkey Kong games, and I recognize that is a different Donkey Kong, but still in the original Donkey Kong games, he's huge. He's climbing skyscrapers, and that Donkey Kong became Cranky Kong or was
Yeah,
related. It- Donkey Kong lore is really weird when you get
yeah. Take it to
super
the
deep
fridge,
into it.
Cranky.
But yeah, he was big back then,
Yeah.
so giant makes sense. And I did almost make him a barbarian myself,
Mm-hmm.
but decided druid would
Yeah,
be more fun.
yeah. And of course, no armor, so he needed that natural armor class. Looks like I forgot to
Right.
calculate his health, but it's probably well above 70.
Probably, yeah, because you do get 12
Yeah.
plus Constitution modifier at the start. Yeah, it's going to be a lot.
Yeah, and then with the weapons, there's the coconut shotgun, of course. Could not have that.
Mhm.
Like that was actually like one of the things that like was like a starting assumption for me. It's like, okay, he has guns. How do I make that work? And he's unarmored. He's literally a guerrilla fighter.
Interesting, because I did not even think about the coconut shotgun.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I'm primarily thinking of him as the Donkey Kong Country, where he doesn't have that.
Yeah, fair enough. I think well also it's like the more I think about it, I don't know if I've actually played a proper Donkey Kong game. I just know about him from Smash Bros and from Cultural Osmosis. So like that's just a major part of his aesthetic sometimes is just like, the various fruit guns.
Yeah, and it's Diddy Kong who creates a bunch of that
Yeah,
type
yeah,
of
he's
thing.
got like the
So
peanut blasters.
yeah,
And
so in
I think
my
that was the thing I had in mind at first when I went into this, and then I realized, no, wait, that's a different Kong. So
right.
I had to,
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, my 5.5 version of Diddy Kong, because he is in Smash Brothers, does have a little bit of Artificer in him,
yep,
so that he can have the coconut or the
yeah,
peanut
yeah,
pistols.
yeah. Because well, if you said he's a tinkerer and he's the one that built these weapons, that makes perfect sense. And his jetpack.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So he's definitely the inventor of the group.
All right, nice. All right, now we move on to Pokemon.
Yep.
Yeah, there was only two Pokemon in the original, but this is interesting.
Yeah, I think we have very similar builds here,
Okay,
near
well,
identical.
yeah, Jigglypuff. Okay, Bard. That's just the most obvious thing. Let's just call that out right now. Jigglypuff
Yes,
sings. Jigglypuff's a bard. No surprise. Did you also go Fairy?
I did because
Okay.
Jigglypuff is a fairy type Pokemon, and that's something I struggled with a lot originally,
Yeah.
because like I kind of know Pokemon, but I'm not super deep in my knowledge of Pokemon. So I thought, I guess I have to do some sort of custom lineage because she doesn't really fit anything else. And then I realized, wait, no, she's a fairy type Pokemon, and fairy is a species.
I'm gonna
Booyah!
admit that part of it didn't even cross my mind. It's just that she's, small. She can fly, and she has like these magic or whatever. Because for me, oh god, I'm gonna sound like such one of those weird internet purists, but I mostly don't play past the fourth generation anymore, and Jigglypuff did not become a fairy type until Gen 6.
But see, she's a fairy type in Pokemon Go, which is the
Yep, there
primary
you go, there you
Pokemon
go.
game I
So you
play.
know what? It was a happy accident that we both landed on this. Okay.
Well, that certainly works, though.
Yeah, and I think I was mostly thinking about Jigglypuff in the anime, which is why, gave her the marker. Puts people to sleep all the time.
Yeah, and did you go with College of Eloquence?
Mantle of Inspiration. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Mantle of
So,
Inspiration, Mantle of Majesty, Enthralling Performance. Yeah, so we
yeah,
basically have the same type of character here.
yeah, pretty much. I've got some of the other ability scores moved around a little bit. I've kind of swapped Strength and Constitution compared to what you have,
Fair enough.
but yeah, it's pretty similar.
Hmm. Yeah,
Obviously,
like
Charisma is the highest one.
the strength might feel high, but that's because in the actual video games, Jigglypuff is a really good physical attacker.
Weirdly, yes.
Yeah, so that's
Uh,
what was where my thought process went for that. I'm like, oh god, I want to dump strength, but like, what about body slam?
looking at our spells, we have the same cantrips except you took Thunderclap and I took Friends.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And we both took Sleep because obviously
Yeah,
we both took Charm Person. I did not actually take Featherfall, and now that I look at yours, I totally should have. But I did take Tasha's Hideous Laughter and Dissonant Whispers because I figure she does a lot of psychic type
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, those are good ones. Did you go for Shatter?
I did not.
Okay,
Shatter does make a lot of sense for the Smash Brothers, like the down B attack. If you do it
well,
right next to your enemy.
yeah, well, it's also thinking about like like a singer who can like raise her voice to such a pitch that'll shatter all the glass around her.
Oh yeah, that does make sense.
Mhm.
No, I did more the charm type
Yeah, yeah,
spells,
that's fair.
but I think both builds are um,
Yeah,
in keeping with Jigglypuff. I
yeah,
probably
she's
would have taken Shatter at some point if I
mhm,
leveled her up.
yeah. All right, and now for the next one.
Pikachu.
All right, this is the all right. So hopefully we diverged a little bit here.
Nope,
Okay, wait,
we
wait,
did
wait.
not.
You also have
Well,
Pikachu as a
okay.
gnome.
No, I do have Pikachu as a custom lineage,
Okay. Yeah,
but
I
as
went.
a storm magic sorcerer.
Yeah. Well, I went gnome simply because of well, like the Well, not because of like the modern trope of like gnomes being like overly mechanicalized, like warlords and everything. It's like those classical garden gnomes or whatever, like the ones that like live among nature. That's kind of the vibe I was going for.
Okay.
So yeah, but spells, of course, you can see a theme here: lightning
Yeah.
lure, shocking grasp.
Right.
Um, this one I think is my favorite though for Pikachu, and that's mirror image because of double team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I went with Misty Step so that I could do the quick attack,
Okay. Yeah, that makes
where I
sense.
disappear from one spot and appear
Yeah,
in
yeah.
another.
Yeah, I had kinetic jaunt for that, but yeah, I see that. I can see Misty Step.
That could work too. Yeah.
Hmm.
But other than that, we both have Expeditious Retreat. I went with Witch Bolt instead of Chaos Bolt.
Okay.
But yeah, we both have electricity themed spells. I will say with my 5.5 version, um, so part of the reason I went sorcerer here is because I had the challenge to not repeat classes,
Yeah.
and I had already used cleric for Luigi.
Oh,
Um,
right, right.
so I have Pikachu as a uh, storm domain cleric uh, for that one because you get to maximize your lightning damage, and also I wanted to differentiate between Pikachu and Pichu.
Hmm.
And I figure Pichu is the one who is smaller and cuter and more likely to use charisma as a casting stat.
All right. But yeah, and I thought about going Tempest Cleric, but it's like,
Tempest, that's
ah,
what I meant. I said
I
Storm
just,
because I'm thinking sorcerer.
yeah, it's just, I was just having a hard time trying to think about, Pikachu in that specific vein. I mean, there's definitely a lot of ways you could do it, like, turn undead to, like, ward off a ghost type Pokemon. There's
Hmm.
probably plenty there, but it's just like, I don't know. It didn't feel like it fit the Pikachu vibe, if that made sense, to go Cleric.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest, when I was doing the 5.5 versions, I had Pikachu as a sorcerer, but then when I got to Pichu, thought, oh, I need to differentiate these.
Yeah, that's fair.
So how can I do that?
Hmm. But
That
yeah,
this is a way to do that.
yeah. And I also threw in the mobile feat because, can move very quickly.
Let me double check. I went with the uh, of course I did this. Elemental Adept,
Hmm.
Lightning.
Okay.
But then I also went with Fey Touch. So that's actually where I got the Misty Step from.
Hmm. Okay. All right. All right. Captain Falcon.
All right. We get some divergence on this one.
Yes. This one was one of those ones where it's like, okay, there's a few obvious directions. I want to try to get as creative as possible with it. So,
You know,
yes,
I say we have we went different directions on this. You went with my 5.5 build actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I went for a paladin,
Hmm.
Oath of Glory, simply because. And I looked very closely at the wording about this, and there is nothing stopping you from smiting on an unarmed strike.
There it depends on who you ask
Yeah,
because Wizards of the Coast has said before you can smite, but the extra damage goes to the weapon damage, which you don't have if it's an unarmed strike. So, personally, as a DM, I'd absolutely allow it, but it is definitely a talk to your DM thing.
yeah. Well, especially because like had him do the fighting style that made him like even better at unarmed strikes. So I figured that pulls it even more out of the gray area. So it's like you can definitely look at it and be like, okay, this is unarmed strikes listed under weapons, and it says when you're making a weapon attack. Okay, and then over here it's like you're rolling a d8. So
Yeah. Now, I will say in 5.5, they unambiguously added unarmed strikes to smites.
okay, but yeah,
Um,
that's the crux of it, that the Falcon Punch is just an unarmed strike.
so I admit that I don't quite have a Falcon Punch on
Hmm.
mine. I have a variant human fighter, and I also went with the unarmed fighting style so that I could do the unarmed strikes.
But doesn't
Uh,
have a Falcon Punch, is the
he
main
doesn't.
thing he's known for.
I know he doesn't have the fire punch, But he is a cavalier, so he's born to the saddle, so he's good at riding in cars.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to figure out like, is there any reasonable way that I can give him like proficiency in flying machines?
Yeah, I have land
Yeah, just
vehicles.
went ahead and put jets because why not? No one's stopping me.
That's true too. Yeah. Reflavor things to suit your campaign.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
but yeah, and
But
then
I did go with the crusher feat so that I could do extra stuff with my punches.
mhm. And yeah, and my thought process for the spells was just like this idea that like, okay, he's a captain, he's extremely brave, leading people into battle, he's facing them down, and I realized during this that I basically made like an alternate version of Kyrios going back to him because
Yes.
Oath of Glory Paladin is just the
Mhm.
most fitting for this, and I'm like, okay, who would win in a fight between Kyrios and Captain Falcon?
Well, Curios obviously, but
Yeah.
yeah, because Curios knows how to show people his moves.
And if it's any kind of sports competition, then Kyrios automatically wins because he's the best athlete.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I went core for this, because mostly because they're large, and Captain Falcon, he doesn't really give me the vibe of someone who talks too much. He's just like, he says things when they're needed, but other than that, he's focused on the mission.
That does make sense. I went with human because, well,
Yeah,
he
and I
looks
was trying
human.
to avoid just making them all like human or variant human. So,
Well,
but
the
also
only ones, I think the only ones I have as human or variant human are Captain Falcon and Samus.
okay, and then also because it gives him the feature of brave, and that felt very fitting for him.
That does make sense. And being a paladin, he gets the fear immunity at some point.
Yeah.
Um,
But now I really want to explore this of an unarmed paladin.
oh yeah, my 5.5 version of him looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, just like like Scythe Jim Morrison. This would be like a whole thing.
All right, so I think that leaves us four more characters to go.
All right. So next, Fox.
All right.
Uh,
Uh,
I went Tabaxi simply because there's no Kitsune race, and but also not just that, the features of a Tabaxi, but for aesthetic, fit Fox so well because of the speed.
I do agree with that, but I went with Shifter
Okay.
um, for, well, similar reasons.
Yeah.
I think it is a shame that there is no Kitsune species in
Yeah.
D&D. That seems like a massive oversight.
Well, what I think that they should do is they should take Tabaxi and make that like an overarching, race, and then there's like, one of those things where there's like multiple sub races for like different flavors. One of them would be cat, one would be fox. Because yeah, by default, like just the natural flavors of Tabaxi, they for the most part still fit a fox incredibly well.
Yeah. So now my shifter went with the swift stride option. So I did also go for speed
Yeah.
on my species here.
But yeah, I went for a scout rogue because I feel like
Uh,
rogue
I
very much fits this theme of being a hunter.
I also went rogue,
Hmm.
but I went with an arcane trickster rogue
Okay.
for one spell in particular. Now I did take some other spells that I feel like made sense, but the spell I'm particularly looking for is shield
Yeah, that makes sense.
because
Yeah,
it
that force
both
field.
yeah, that force field, which is based on the spin move that you can do in Star Fox 64, that causes lasers to bounce off of you. Shield makes a lot of sense. I also gave him Expeditious Retreat so he could run fast.
Hmm.
Mage Armor, because he doesn't always necessarily need armor,
Hmm.
and Burning Hands, which
Yeah,
is kind of replicating the up B attack where he
yeah.
catches on fire.
Yeah, a lot of those I was having trouble figuring out good ways to emulate. That's a good way to do it, and I thought about giving him a blaster, but for that I would have to go through like, a lot of specialized feats and everything, so I figured that it's better just to give him the ability score improvements and give him a crossbow because that already fits his theme just as well.
And I also went with a crossbow.
Yeah. And actually, what I really like
But
about this
light
one is
or
that if you just like change the name from Fox to anything else, you could drop this character as is into a normal campaign.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now I did go with a hand crossbow instead of a light crossbow
Yeah.
because I
Well,
figure he's got a pistol.
yeah, fair enough. And I figured that, he probably has like a handful of weapons to cycle between, but
That's probably
I
true
just
too.
wanted him to be able to put like his best foot forward with like the one that does a little more damage.
Yeah.
But okay. And then the claws, of course.
Well, see, yours has claws, mine doesn't.
Yeah. So what is he gonna do when he runs out of bolts?
Expeditious retreat.
All right. Now to the boy Ness.
All right. So we have the same species here, stout halfling,
Yep, yep.
and
Because he's a kid, but he's a strong kid.
I think that is where our similarities end.
Okay. You go first. Well, what does yours look like?
All right. I have Ness as a warlock
Okay, that was also
because
on my list, but yeah, that makes sense.
and it's a great old one warlock, both because that's the one that does kind of psychic-ish powers, which he's got the psi powers,
Yeah,
and also because that's kind of the story of Earthbound. They've got the whole end of the world thing with the
yeah.
unknowable
Hmm.
monsters. Um, so it's a little weird that he's gaining power directly from that monster, but
Hmm.
still, it works in
Yeah,
my opinion. So obviously Eldritch Blast, Lightning Lure because he does the lightning uh, attack,
hmm,
Magic Stone so that he can throw things at people like baseballs, that sort of thing, and a lot of psychic spells like Dissonant Whispers, Tasha's Hideous Laughter. I've got Phantasmal Force.
hmm.
Somehow I have two different detect thoughts, not three different detect thoughts.
Oh, you
Don't
can
worry
detect
about
thoughts
that.
really well.
Actually, looking at this, one of these is a limited once per day thing. One came from the telepathic feat,
Hmm.
and then one came from being a great old one warlock. So,
Okay. Yes, so I was also very much inspired by, that Presence of all like these aliens and everything out there. So I went as a hunter ranger because he's hunting the apparitions.
okay, I can see that. Yeah, favorite enemy aberrations. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
So that is, and then of course, he has the baseball bat. So
Right. Yeah,
so
and I did not get a great way to have the baseball bat on him, so I do like
yeah,
that.
gave him a sling because I feel like that very much fit his kind of vibe.
Yeah. Anytime you've got like a slingshot, I feel like a sling can work as a
Yeah,
substitute for that.
yeah. So fighting style archery because of that. So he's really good with the sling, and so those are his main two weapons: the great club and the sling. Favored terrain just went grasslands because he's just a hometown kid. He loves the open air and going outside and everything. But also stout halfling, so he's lucky and he's brave. And then I also went ahead and gave him the sharpshooter feat, also for that sling, because I wanted him to be able to be really good at it. And I kept thinking of trying to find ways to do the yo-yo, but that didn't quite work. That would be more like a bolo or something, or also kind of a sling when you think about it. So
Yeah, you could sort of use a whip.
yeah,
It's you're going to have to do a little bit of reflavoring. There's not
yeah,
a good yo-yo
yeah.
weapon.
Well, this actually reminds me. The very first magic weapon I ever designed as a DM was actually a yo-yo inspired by his, and so it just did like a d6 of fire damage, and it was just like short range, simple melee weapon or whatever. But hey, it was magic and did fire damage.
Sometimes those are the coolest weapons.
Yeah. All right, and then just for spells, long strider, so he can get around, absorb elements, magic weapon for the bat. And then he's got some. So yeah, I went with a ranger who's just hunting down these aliens. He's just like a hometown kid. Dangers come to him, and he's ready for it.
Very good.
All right, now I think this is number 12.
No, we have this should be number 11.
Oh, okay. Oh, right, right. I remember
Yeah,
the one I
but
was saving for last. The
we've got the
weird one.
difficult one last. Yeah,
Yes. Link.
Link.
And yeah, and also if
Who?
you remember, Link was actually the first one of these I did a few months ago because I was on a kick of just like making a bunch of like fun themed sheets. So like I just already had this one ready to go.
Um,
Um, yeah,
yeah,
he's also the
there's
only
a
one with an explicit magic item that wasn't justified by the class, and that's just because, you know, gauntlets of ogre strength. It made too much sense.
yeah, he definitely gets those. I
Yeah.
mean, they're obviously not called that, but in Ocarina of Time, he definitely gets gauntlets that he can pick up things that are way too heavy for any
Hmm.
regular human. And he also has gauntlets in Zelda 2 for the NES, in A Link to the Past. This is a character where I said I didn't play all that much Pokemon.
Hmm.
I've played a lot of Legend of Zelda.
Okay.
So I can talk about a lot of different versions of Link. And there's probably a good 10 ways you can build him that
Hmm.
make sense for different games.
Yeah, the one I'd be most interested in is Twilight Princess because of the wolf stuff.
Yeah, that is probably the most difficult one, and it feels reasonable to give him some druid levels so that you can turn into a wolf. But I
Yeah.
don't feel like you can give him all druid levels because he definitely also doesn't be a wolf most of the time.
But yeah, so, proficiency with the Ocarina, half elf because, very Fey origin, and then an Eldritch Knight because, he's absolutely a fighter, but he also has magic, so that felt like a good direction to go for him. And then, the Master, then he's got like the Long Sword, of course, which could be the Master Sword, which I feel like would,
Mhm.
be some kind of magical weapon if you wanted to go that far with it, but. So yeah, he could be weapon bonded with it. And then for the spells, I gave a lot of these jump because of just like in both Smash Brothers and in their normal games, the distance that they're actually able to jump is just superhumanly high.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you look at it from an objective standpoint, it's generally insane. Although Link only has a few games in which he can jump.
Yeah, usually if he
Um,
falls more than 2 feet, he dies.
but in those games, when you start looking at how high he can jump, it gets insane.
Well, even in
So
Ocarina of Time, there are moments where it's like a side leap from like one ledge to another, but he still gets some really good
he still
distance on it.
clears it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, so that's less height and more distance. But
yeah,
yeah, he
still.
can do some weird stuff. So one of my favorite games is The Legend of Zelda 2: The Adventures of Link because that was my first Legend of Zelda game. It is also the weirdest Legend of Zelda game and doesn't really fit with the rest of the games in terms of gameplay.
Hmm.
And he can jump really high in that. And that one makes a lot of sense as an Eldritch Knight because he has a list of spells that he can cast, and they line up pretty well to D&D spells. So I do like that. But I had already used Fighter
Hmm.
for Captain Falcon. So I went with a wood elf. Similar
Hmm.
idea. You've got the pointy ears, the Fey
Yeah.
ancestry, but I went with a paladin.
Okay.
Link
Okay.
often
Yeah.
has some magic.
So we
Mhm.
swapped on Captain Falcon and Link.
We did. Yeah, I kind of like that. So I've got heroism for him, protection from good and evil, shield of faith, cure wounds because I figure he's got a fairy in that bottle.
Hmm.
Um, so that sort of thing. Um, and of course he can smite because he can charge up that long sword. I've got a long sword and shield as well.
Hmm.
And he can do that spin attack and hit people with that. And
Yeah.
he can do a sacred weapon. I have him, excuse me, for the subclass. I was going to go Oath of the Crown,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah, I can
be,
see that.
because he swears an oath to Zelda, who
Yeah,
is
that makes sense.
the princess. But there was one problem with going with Oath of the Crown. It's in Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. I was building this in D&D Beyond. I don't have Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, so I didn't have access to that specific subclass. Um,
So what'd you do?
so
Oath of
so instead, I
Ancients?
went Oath of Devotion,
Devotion. Right, right,
which,
right. I think that was the one I was
which
reaching
is
for.
which is kind of the
the default
I am a
paladin.
paladin.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do think Oath of the Crown would be a good option for him
Yeah.
as well.
Okay. Oh, while we're on the subject, so going back to um, Twilight Princess, what about a like a Phantom Rogue? Because it's a past version of himself who's training him throughout the game, right? Like it's the hero of time who's in like the limbo state or whatever, training the hero of Twilight.
That could absolutely work. And in fact, since that is a past version of himself, we assume the game never officially says, but he's also the only other character who is the same handedness as Link. Um, so I okay, I'm just gonna just deep dive into the lore here.
Oh, okay. We are. I was about to say we don't have to, but no, no. Please do if you are
But,
actually interested.
yeah, yeah. All right. So, um, the game does not say that that is a version of Link, but there are a lot of clues that indicate that it is. Um, one of the big clues is the handedness. Depending on the version of the game you play, Link is either right handed or left handed because they flipped the entire game when they added the motion controls because most people are right handed and they wanted him to be right handed for the motion controls, which means in that version, everybody else in the game is left handed except for the one guy who's training him.
Hmm.
Also, the one guy who's training him is a Staphlos, and we learn in other games that people who get lost in the forest turn into those. And we know from Majora's Mask that Link gets lost in the forest. So it is reasonable to draw those connections and say, okay, after Ocarina of Time, he goes into the forest. We have Majora's Mask, and eventually he becomes a Staphlos and comes back to train his future incarnation.
Okay.
So all of that to say, if you're doing 5.5 edition, there is a not Wizards of the Coast pack called Valda's Spire of Secrets that has a future you subclass for Warlock, which
Yeah.
works great for a variety of links because in Ocarina of Time there's time travel. In Majora's Mask there's time travel. In A Link to the Past there's none, even though it says past in the name. What happened, guys? What happened? There's more time travel in the games that don't mention time travel than the ones that do. Um, for that matter, there's time travel in Tears of the Kingdom too.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of time travel.
Yeah, yeah. Like I know one of the Game Boy Advance games has like some of the most time travel in it, and it's one of the
Yes,
lesser known games.
Oracle of Ages.
Yeah.
I have not completed that game. Um, I have that game. I have a hard copy of that game and a Game Boy Color to play it on. But it was so weird trying to switch the cartridges out. I never quite got into that game. Uh, but anyway, yeah, there's all sorts of time travel in that one. You are literally going to different ages.
Yeah. Okay.
So all that to say,
Like,
fighter, ranger, warlock, paladin, pretty much anything that can get you a sword and a shield, you can make a link out of. And one of the things I love about the Breath of the Wild link is depending on the armor set that you're using, you can effectively make him other classes there. You can have a barbarian link.
hmm.
He's so flexible.
God, now I want to do an entire video just based on Link because I just have so many questions about different aspects that we can go for, like how in Majora's Mask, he's a shape changer, and how in.
We can do it.
Oh,
I can come up with a list of Legend of Zelda games and make a link. Not for each one of them. There will be some that crossover, but for most of them.
okay. Surprise round. Zelda slash Sheik. How are we doing her?
Well, I do have her as two different characters
Hmm.
because later on in Smash
Yeah.
Brothers they do split them. But I wanted some similarity between the two because they're the same character.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that they both had good wisdom as their highest stat. For Zelda, that meant being a cleric,
Hmm.
light domain cleric, because she's got the
Yeah.
light arrows and all that. She does a lot of light based stuff. And then for Sheik, I've got a combination uh, Gloomstalker Ranger and Shadow Monk.
Hmm.
That's my standard, be a ninja build.
All right, that makes sense. All right, now before we spend the rest of the day on this, let's move on to the other really, really weird one.
Yeah, Link was the easy one because there's so many ways to go. The last one is Kirby, who is the hard one because oh my gosh, nothing Kirby does fits D&D.
Yeah.
None of it. Uh, oh, what you got?
Okay, I went Shifter Druid
Okay.
Shifter Druid of Stars, and so the shifting, I guess I went for Beast Hide because Kirby is pretty tough despite everything, and I think rather than try to figure out too many ways of transformation, I decided to go for giving Kirby different abilities and like in effect it would be like the way it would do it would be like the way Kirby does stuff in games. So for instance, Kirby has a scimitar, and that's because of like the sword copy ability.
All right. I like it. I
Yeah,
especially like the stars aspect of it because Kirby does come from the stars.
yeah. And also starry form, it felt like give Kirby another option for things to absorb. So yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty good. I can't argue with much of that. And like I said, it is hard to get Kirby into D&D. I like the wild shape being able to transform.
mhm,
Um, even though you're not transformed like a moon druid would, you can
mhm.
get some abilities. I went with a completely different route.
Okay.
I went for as much of those things as I could, the transformations as I could, by being a wizard, a
Mhm.
plasmoid wizard.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so here's the thing.
school.
I was like 90% sure you were gonna go Plasmoid, so I had to ask myself, is there any other race that fit this? Like for me, that suddenly became the challenge. It's like, is there a second way of doing this?
I do have Fey touched,
Okay.
um, to kind of have that otherworldliness, which also gives me Misty Step. That's something I used more than once in this in this building session. Um, but I've got lots of different spells and transmutation wizard, so that I can do a bunch of changes. I have absorb elements so that I can take on the powers of the people who hit me
Hmm.
because Kirby does. I've got burning hands, chromatic orb, color spray,
Yeah.
things that can do a variety of different types of stuff, like chromatic orb. I went with any of those. I thought about going Scribe's Wizard so that I could change the damage type on a
Hmm.
bunch of things, but I figured transmutation
Yeah.
was more in keeping with what Kirby can do. And one of the things that I got in particular is alter self, so
Okay.
that
Yeah.
Kirby can actually change, his own body and get, claws or whatever is appropriate for whatever he's fighting. But oh my gosh, this was hard.
Yeah.
It was by far the hardest one.
Hmm. God, this is such a weird one.
And spoilers for my 5.5 ones. There are a handful of characters that no, did the stream close?
Oh yeah. Well, we were done with the sideshow, so.
Oh, I got it. Gotcha. Um, there are a handful of characters in my 5.5 that uh, I don't have finished, and Kirby is one of them.
Yeah. Okay.
And Kirby is the one who's not finished because I'm like, I don't really know what to do here. There are a couple that I'm waiting on things that have been in Unearthed Arcanas that I feel like would be better than current options.
Hmm.
Um, Kirby's not that one.
Okay. Well, as long as Kirby is on it, surprise round, Meta Knight.
All right, so also Plasmoid
Okay.
because if Kirby is a Plasmoid, Meta Knight is as well. He's the same thing as Kirby, just wearing armor. So obviously he's got to be able to wear armor, heavy armor at that, because he's got to be able to use martial weapons,
And be able to move quickly.
and be able to move quickly. So I have him as an Oath of Vengeance Paladin.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really fitting.
Um, that one was a lot easier. I do have him wielding a rapier,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
he seems more like a dexterity based character, which means I've also dumped strength, which means that there's no multi-classing with him,
Mhm.
because you have to have 13 strength to multi-class out of paladin, even though they don't need strength if you go dexterity. Uh,
Okay.
he's a
All right.
lot easier than Kirby.
Yeah. All right. Surprise, surprise round. Do you have one you want to throw at me?
Oh, okay. Let me take a look and see what I can see that gave me trouble.
Oh.
Uh, or that I thought was particularly fun. Okay, I'm going to give you one that I kind of cheated on, because in the 5.5 I'm using a Vault of Spyro Secrets thing. Actually, I say I'm using a Vault of Spyro Secrets. This is not Vault of Spyro Secrets. It's something else. I'll explain in a minute. Little Mac.
Okay, he's the boxer, right?
He is the boxer.
Okay, so that would almost be like that famous pugilist homebrew class that's going around, but I kind of want to go just based off of the ones I know. I feel like an open hand monk would work really well. So, what are his powers?
He punches.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, sorry, that was it.
Does he kick?
No,
Okay. So actually, I don't even know if open hand would work because open hand is about like grasps and like manipulating your opponent. So,
he has left hand jab,
hmm.
right hand jab, and uppercut. And you can punch stomach or face. Those are and he can dodge.
Okay. So yeah, it's definitely a monk.
I did go with pugilist, and there is a boxing subclass for
Yeah,
pugilist.
that makes a lot of sense.
I think open hand monk is a fine answer.
Yeah, it's just it's the opposite. It's a closed hand monk.
I Yeah, just because it says open hand doesn't
I
mean
know,
you
I know.
can't. You know.
Bare knuckle
Uh,
boxing.
but what about Greninja?
Greninja. Okay, a water dark type Pokemon. A frog. Okay, so definitely maybe like a grung for a frog race.
That's what I did. Yep.
Okay, so probably like probably like a rogue grung.
Okay, that can work.
Okay, yeah, because it has the water shurikens.
And you can use
Or maybe a shadow sorcerer.
daggers. Shadow sorcerer could work too. That could get you some of the darkness.
Yeah. So tell you what, I will
And
go.
honestly, some of the water as well, because there are water-based sorcerer spells.
Yeah, but also it is a somewhat physical attacker, so I feel like a half caster would work a little better. But oh, what about like a Gloomstalker Ranger?
Well, I did say Gloomstalker is part of my standard ninja build, so
Yeah, because I feel
I
like
like that as well.
they've got like the half caster, so they've got some of the spells for that. They've got like the ninja ness of being able to move around with the decent armor and melee capabilities. Okay, yeah, it's probably not the expected answer, but I would go as a Gloomstalker Ranger Grung.
I have Grung, Shadow Monk with Circle of the Sea Druid.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, and I also just
But if
love
I
the
told you everything I had, I wouldn't be able to make you come back for another round where we do the next 12 characters.
but yeah, Grung Monk is just such a fun combination because of the poisonous
It
hands.
is. It is.
Yeah, I don't know if the players told you, but in the last campaign before you joined, that was basically like the final boss of the campaign, or one of them was this. God, it never sounds normal no matter how many times I say this, but basically they went into this village because they were investigating this disappeared Warforged body. They found out that a bunch of frog people had moved into it, and they were being ruled by a frog despot, who was a Grung monk, and they had to kill him.
That is awesome.
Yep.
I'd
No,
be up
that
for playing
sentence
that
never
campaign.
gets any more normal. All right. All right. Any closing remarks or any other ones you want to throw at me?
Nope, I'm going to save the rest. So, like I said, we can do more videos. So, like and subscribe and request more videos so that we can do this again.
All right. Yep. Thank you for joining us, Nathan. Yep. If y'all have any ideas for builds, go ahead and put them in the comments below. But yeah, until next time, everyone, have a great day and God bless. I don't know why I did the salute, but I'm glad you went for it.